Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Script. I'm Evie Catherine, and today we have Nimit Vediya. He is a recent graduate of U of T's medical school, and he just matched to U of T's residency program for internal medicine, and he's here with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for making this happen.
First, I'd love to know what inspired you to go into medicine.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, and this is one of those questions they ask us in interviews all the time. So I have thought about this.
Okay.
It might sound a little scripted, but I think what started it was when I was 4 years old. I got diagnosed with osteomyelitis on my left arm, which is basically just an infection of the bone in the left arm.
Wow.
And I think that experience really showed me what the medical world was like, showed me what it was like to be a patient, and then also see it from the family's lens. Like I was a kid, I didn't really understand anything, but my parents are still like horrified when you talk about the situation till this date. So I think that early seed was very important. And then when I went into high school, I was always interested by biology and medicine, but I didn't want to cheat the profession, as in I didn't want to go in because I liked the idea of being a doctor or the prestige of being a doctor or whatever you think about when you think about being a doctor. So I tried many other things. Like I tried doing things in tech, doing things in business. And then ultimately I was like, I think medicine will be the most interesting, the most exciting. And it just has everything. So I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're okay. How long, if you don't mind me asking, like, how long was that process from when you were 4? Was that like a several year long journey, or did you recover quickly, or how did that work?
It wasn't that long, thankfully, and sometimes it's a recurring disease, and that didn't happen to me. But around that time, they misdiagnosed it a bunch of times. It's interesting because I have the files now, and I can understand the files finally. So I've read the files, and they misdiagnosed it a bunch of times because initially, as a kid, you can't really describe what's happening to you.
Yeah.
So that kind of happened, and then once they did the surgery, things kind of went pretty well.
Okay.
But I always tell my friends I'm not the best swimmer, and they're always making fun of me for that. But I always tell them as an excuse that I wasn't allowed to do physical activity for a few years after.
There you go.
So I think that was the process that impacted me more than anything.
That's a very good excuse. You were in the hospital and you're 4 years. That's young.
Yeah.
Of course you can't be expected to really understand anything that's going on, but it's cool that you still had that experience and remember enough of it. It was very memorable and inspired some medicine, I guess, excitement. That's really cool. Tell me about getting into med school, what med school was like. That whole process is very foreign to me, and I just would love to hear your experience.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. And when I look back at it now, so I'm 25 now, and I started this whole journey when I was about 20 years old or 21 years old when I took the MCAT. And I started this journey with 2 of my friends, Nimit and Rushal. Some of you guys might know them from our channel, Med Boys. And we've been together since high school. So we all met in grade 9, and then we kind of found out that all of us want to do medicine.
Oh.
And we went to this school called Wilfrid Laurier CI in Scarborough. And that was kind of our journey all along. We just wanted to make sure we go into medicine. So we did everything together because we thought, why do 3 things separately and then all have individual mistakes and then kind of make the same mistakes as the other people are making, rather than doing everything together and then learning from each other's mistakes and kind of compounding our knowledge, compounding the things we're doing. So we kind of decided that we're going to do everything together. And that brought us to the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, mainly because none of us got into health sci at McMaster, which was like the program you want to get into. And then I feel like we were in undergrad for only 6 months, and then COVID hit. So it was a very different experience than a lot of other people. But I think that made our focus even stronger. And we knew this was our goal, so we kind of made sure that we were going for it from the start, and did everything together, did our MCATs together. prepped for applications together. It was a fun time. When I look back at it now,
Yeah.
it was not a fun time when I was doing it.
You said you used the word fun just now, and I was like, that is probably the last word I would use to describe that. But
Yeah. When it was happening, it was not a fun time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Especially during COVID when you're just at home not doing anything.
Yeah.
But I think that journey was interesting, kind of discovering your limits, how far you can push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was an interesting time. And then when eventually I got into medical school, I was kind of like, what now? Because I just spent like these last 5 or 6 years just dedicating everything to medicine.
Yeah.
And then I was like left with this like void almost about what am I going to do next?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think in medicine, many doctors feel this way, many med students feel this way, but then there's always something that happens after, like residency, fellowship.
Yeah.
It just keeps going.
You talked about pushing yourself. I would imagine there was a lot of that in med school. Did you feel like you sometimes got to a breaking point? Did you feel like you really had to push through, or were you able to kind of keep your head up and kind of just keep doing what you needed to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as a fellow U of T graduate, you know how hard U of T undergrad is.
Yeah,
and
it's not easy.
how bad your grades can get if you're not really focusing.
Yeah.
So I think being at UTSC, doing neuroscience and psychology was actually really hard because we had to make sure that our averages didn't fall below like an 85 at least or a 90. Mainly a 90 because anything below a 90 would be a 3.9.
Mm-hmm.
The average GPA that U of T takes for their med school is a 3.95. So there's a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
So then when I came into medical school, it's pass-fail for the first 2 years. So
it is?
we do have exams,
Okay.
but it's pass-fail. And the way it's pass-fail is, let's just say there's 4 exams in a given course. You can fail 1 or 2 of the exams, but as long as you pass the course, it's fine.
Okay.
So it was actually a lot more chill than my undergrad.
Wow.
So that was a nice break.
Yeah, I bet.
And people are always surprised when I tell them this, when they're like, what were your hours like? How were you studying?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the real difference is when you get into medical school, you're really studying to learn rather than perform. So yes,
Okay.
you can still get your 90s, you still can get a 95, but that's not the objective. The objective is that you get the information down. So whatever that might be. So it doesn't really matter if, for example, a passing mark, it changes depending on the course, but your passing mark could be a 79. So if someone gets a 79 and someone gets like a 99, it makes no difference.
Okay.
Because of that, the first 2 years were super chill. But after that, 3rd and 4th year were the complete opposite.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How so?
3rd and 4th year are when you're in the hospital. So you're kind of working with doctors, with residents, and it's like a lot of work, especially after the first 2 years, which weren't that much work. So, for example, I started off my 3rd year of medical school with neurosurgery, and we
started with neurosurgery?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's got to be like the most intense one to start. That or like cardio, heart surgery.
Yeah. And I did pick
my
neurosurgery, to be fair.
Okay. Still.
Not to be first, but I did pick it.
Wild start. Wow.
Yeah. So, and it was at Toronto Western Hospital, which was far from me. So I would wake up every day at like 4 to get there for 5. And then I'm like really, really like anxious about being late to places.
Yeah.
So then because of that, I'd have to get there like half an hour early, and then we'd start rounding at 5:30 and then finish the day around like 5 p.m. So that was like a very big shift from just not having that much work, and then now you're in the hospital for 12 hours a day.
Oh my gosh. So then you finish at 5 p.m. and then do you go back the next day at 5 a.m.? And do you do that? Like how many days in a row are you doing that?
That was 3 weeks. And then in between those days, there are some days, probably once a week, where you stay at the hospital for 26 hours. So you're there from like 5 a.m. to like 7 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
And then that happens every week. And then that kind of continued throughout all of 3rd year. So it was crazy.
What is the environment like in med school? Because I assume it's a bunch of people who are able to handle that lifestyle. And that is, I think, a very small percentage of people. I would imagine it's an incredibly driven, ambitious group of people. Did you feel pressure from your peers, or did you find people were more supportive than competitive, or was that experience different than what you expected?
Yeah, I think it was different. I think it was like U of T is known for its like competitiveness, being brutal.
Yeah.
And
even an undergrad.
Yeah, like U of Tears.
Yeah.
Is like the name they.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. But like medical school is completely different because of the marks, because you're not competing with anyone, at least in the first 2 years. And because of that, people aren't really like motivated by kind of making like doing something bad to you, for example, or like taking advantage of something. So people are like very open to making friends. I think that was something I was really surprised by. When I started med school, I was 21. So that was on the younger side of my class.
Yeah.
Because usually average age is like 23 to 24.
For starting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think because of that, I was a little bit more like timid starting med school because all these other guys were kind of experienced, had done like a master's or something.
Right.
So I think initially I was a little timid and I was commuting the first year. But I think med school, it creates an environment where they kind of force you to make friends because you're in these like small groups for a lot of the things you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're with these people for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years sometimes.
Yeah.
So you're going to make friends, which is really nice. And I think having a class, my class was I think 274 people when we started. So there's a lot of people. So you're going to find your people. And I think that was something that was very reassuring to me. It was something, you also get a very diverse group of people.
Really?
We had people in our class from the military. We had people from the class who had done music as an undergrad.
No way.
Yeah. So
wow.
And engineering at U of T, for example.
Yeah.
So it gives you like a breadth of experience that you can have all these perspectives. One of my best friends is a pharmacist. And I always ask him the medicine questions.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's very helpful. And being in this environment, I was very fortunate, feel very lucky to be here. And yeah, it's helped me tremendously over the last few years.
I think everyone probably assumes everyone in med school has studied some sort of science in undergrad, but it's cool to hear that there are different options.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a good thing. Because before, I think med school was very rigid. It was like you have to do these prerequisites, you have to have this mark,
right?
You have to have X, Y, Z. But I think it's very open now. And especially a lot of the Ontario schools, they have almost zero prerequisites now.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can do any degree you like. So even because there's a lot of people that ask us on our channel, what undergrad degree should I do? What should I go into? And the truth is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could do anything you want as long as your marks are high.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a really good message for people to know that you don't have to know right at 18 that when you're trying to decide what program to go into, that it's okay to change your mind. If you do decide medical school, it's okay if your undergrad hasn't been in a science.
And it's probably a good backup policy too. Like for example, if I didn't get into med school, at any time, then doing a degree in like my neuroscience degree is not as valuable as like, for example, doing like an engineering degree.
Yeah, fair enough.
So if you do engineering and then you go into med school, then you at least have like a backup.
Right.
Although it is very hard to maintain your marks in engineering.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
so you have to keep that in mind.
True. How did you manage the stress and avoid burnout, or was burnout inevitable? Were there things that you had to really work on to get yourself to stay calm and relaxed throughout those last 2 years?
Yeah, I think it was a steady process. I think I was burnt out.
Yeah.
Probably, so my third year started in like August, and then I'd say I probably felt a little burnt out all the way in June, just because you're kind of like going hard over and over again. And I think what was difficult for me, especially throughout med school, was deciding my specialty. I found myself interested in so many things that it was really hard to kind of say, okay, I don't want to do this, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And because of that, I kind of felt that pressure to perform in each and every rotation, compared to if you already knew you wanted to go into neurosurgery, for example, then you're going to perform really well on that rotation, and you can kind of not really do bad on a rotation, but kind of take a step back.
Right, you relax a little bit more if you're doing like OBGYN or something, and you know it's not what you want to go into.
Right. But I felt like I couldn't do that because in case I wanted to go into something else, they'd really have to see that I performed well on that as well. So I think because of that, it put a lot of pressure on me. And like looking back now, I shouldn't have done that. I should have kind of just taken everything just steadily rather than kind of go like above and beyond for every single thing. I think that's like a very common like fallacy we fall into in medicine. You want to be the best at every single thing. And I think for my patients, I definitely want to be the best at every single thing. But the smaller things you can kind of For example, if your resident tells you to go home, you should go home.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be like, hey, I'll stay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think those are some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Avoiding burnout, I think it was, I think right after that period in June, I think I was really burnt out at that period, and I was like, I need to do something. And I think a lot of my friends were feeling the same way. So what we started doing that July, my next rotation was actually OBGYN.
Oh, cool.
Which was one of the busier rotations.
Okay.
But what we did is we would go on a walk every single day.
Oh,
yeah, and
that's so nice.
Yeah, so we're like, we'll get the steps in. And it like clears our mind. So we just walk from like U of T basically to Harborfront and then back.
Oh, that's a great walk.
Yeah, and the weather's nice. You feel like you're outside the hospital. So I think doing stuff like that with your friends, just like low energy activities,
right,
where you're not planning something, you're not doing an activity per se. I think that really helped. And then now I've kind of kept that going, trying to do something once every week at least. Like after this, I'm going to see some friends.
Yeah.
And then there's an orientation. So kind of putting things in between wherever I can.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, you have to, it sounds like. Otherwise, you will drive yourself up a wall. And I like what you said about walking. Like it's, something away from the hospital. It's low impact. It's nothing crazy. You're not getting your heart rate up because it might have been up if you were doing like an emergency, like an emerge rotation or something. But yeah, I love that you guys just would go together. That's really sweet and wholesome. And I love that. I love that stuff. And you, of all people, would know the benefits of getting steps in and being outside and prioritizing your mental health. So
yeah, I feel like doctors are probably, and med students and probably pre-meds are probably the worst at taking care of their health.
That's fair. Yeah, the worst patients.
Yeah, because they're studying all day and they're in the hospital all day. They're sitting all the time. So it was important. I felt like when I was studying for the MCAT and all of those things, I didn't really take care of my health. And even like in terms of my health, in terms of my weight, it all went up during COVID. But then I really introspected and found out that I have to take care of all of this if I want to take care of the mental.
Right, yeah.
So it was a big priority. And I was lucky that all of my friends in medical school in my year, we kind of decided we'd stay in the same building. So it was very convenient. So if
nice.
I wanted to go to the gym, I could go with someone. If we wanted to walk, I could go with someone. It was, very, very convenient, good planning.
And being around people and being around your people, like good people, that makes such a difference. Just being able, like you said, go on a walk or just go like, hey, I'm getting groceries. Do you want to come with me?
Yeah.
Like it's just something like to do with kind of just have someone else there for you is, I bet, really nice. So you mentioned deciding your specialty was a hard decision. Does that happen? Is it third year or fourth year where you have to decide your specialty, or is that when you graduate? Tell me about what that process is like.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what specialty you want. It's basically how competitive the specialty is depends on, or like when you start depends on how competitive the specialty is. So one of the most competitive specialties right now is ophthalmology. And
do you know why?
Honestly, it's probably because work-life balance is good, because compensation is good. Yeah. You get to do surgery, but it's still low. Like it's not too high intensity. Depending on what you're doing, retina can be very high intensity. But that's one of the most competitive things that have been going on recently. So people start even before med school. Like in their masters, people do opto in their PhDs and then come to med school. Or people will start in their first year. But I think for the vast majority of specialties, I'd say other than like plastic surgery, dermatology, ophthalmology, and sometimes physiatry, other than that, usually people decide in their third year because up till then, you're not living the life. When we're in our first and second year, you can shadow people. So you can go into their clinics for a day, you can go into the OR for a day, but it's not the same. You kind of see like a snapshot. So you see a trailer, but that doesn't really represent the movie. Medicine's interesting because you could have, let's say, 4 different doctors in the same hospital doing the same specialty, but their lives and practices are completely different.
Wow.
So you could shadow all 4 of them and have completely different experiences.
And have a different idea of what it might
look
like.
Yeah, exactly. So you might go to one person and be like, oh, their work-life balance is amazing. And then you go to the second person and you're like, oh, their work-life balance sucks.
Wow.
Or their work sucks, depending on what field they're in. And because of that, your idea of the field is biased. Like, for example, if I have a mentor who's just amazing, then I'm going to love that specialty.
Right.
And then if I don't connect with someone, I'm going to be like, oh, I didn't really like that specialty. So that's why first and second year is not as accurate to decide what you're doing.
Yeah.
But then when in your third year, you're like living the life now, and you're kind of in that day in and day out, and that's when you can really test out what you really like. So for me, it was a journey the entire way, because I wanted to ideally figure it out before my third year, because that means if I was doing something competitive, I could prepare, do the research and all that stuff. But ultimately, it came down to like very last minute where I had to decide what I was doing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you ended up deciding internal medicine. What were the others that you were kind of debating between?
Yeah, I think coming into med school with the neuroscience background, I was very like neurology, neurosurgery oriented.
Okay.
So that was always something on my radar. Internal medicine was something else that was always on my radar. I had a mentor who went into internal medicine. He's doing cardiology in the U.S. right now.
Cool.
So he went to UTSC, went to U of T Med School, and then did internal medicine. So kind of set up the path for like me and my friends.
Yeah.
So those were the two I kind of came in with. And then I just went like up and down all over the place. Like if you ask my friends, they always make fun of me for this because they're like, you've seen every specialty. When I was in my second year, I like heavily considered ENT.
Okay.
Because you can do a lot of the neuro stuff, but in a different way. The lifestyle's a little bit better. Then I went kind of, after I did my neurosurgery rotation, I loved it so much that I was like, this is something I might actually want to do. And then many people talked me out of it.
Oh, really?
Just because of the hours you have to put in, the intensity. It's kind of, not that you can't have a life outside of neurosurgery, but it is very intensive.
Yeah.
So you have to go in with your eyes open.
Yeah.
So then from neurosurgery, I went to kind of orthopedics was a big thing where I considered. I did an elective in it at Mount Sinai as well. I really liked it. But ultimately, it came down to I really enjoyed the breadth of internal medicine.
Okay.
I enjoyed that you could kind of think your way through these cases. You could do specialties that are procedural, like cardiology or GI. And you can also delay your decision 3 years, basically.
Oh, okay.
Because you can subspecialize after 3 years of internal medicine. So I think that's really what it came down to. But the ultimate decision was basically in August, and I applied in December.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very close.
That is close, yeah. Hearing you talk about it makes me wonder, like, how much of the decision is weighted in, okay, this is lifestyle, this will make for a good, like, next 20, 30 years for me, more manageable, maybe if you want to have kids one day, like that sort of thinking versus I'm genuinely just like really interested in the brain, or I'm really interested in whatever it is. Like, I imagine, obviously you just said internal medicine, you were really interested in the breadth of it and like solving a case kind of thing. So do you kind of have to weigh, like, because it sounds like some of these decisions are often based on lifestyle and what your life will look like. But do you think enough people are still making their decision based on which specialty genuinely just interests them?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I think there's a balance, but that balance is different for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that question was very hard for me to answer about how much importance do I want to give to lifestyle? What kind of life do I want? It's almost like you're playing the game of life. Like you're at this fork in your life, and you decide what life you're going to have. So that's a big thing when you think.
That's a big deal at like 25. That's a big decision to make.
And it's a lot to think about. Like I'm still young, and like thinking about like kids, thinking about like the future is hard. But it's also important to do because you want to make sure you're not like 40 or 45 and then you're like regretting your life decisions. Right. The nice part is, let's just say you really, really wanted to switch out of a residency. You could technically.
Okay.
It's hard to do, and people don't usually do it. But at least you have that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was, lifestyle became a more important factor. The reason I talk about this is because a lot of people go through this. And I don't think it's talked about as much, very openly. Like, I found it very hard to talk about with people. Like, for example, the specialties I wanted to go into, talking to them about lifestyle, I found a little difficult because it might seem like you don't want to commit yourself fully.
Yeah.
And you don't want that impression, especially when you're applying to these schools and they're selecting you.
Yeah.
But I think some of the experiences that really opened my eyes were talking to residents, talking to staff even who told me about stuff. And lifestyle can be bad in any specialty. You could do family medicine, your lifestyle can be bad. You could do neurosurgery, your lifestyle can be bad, and also the opposite.
Yeah.
You can have a great lifestyle in neurosurgery. It's kind of dependent on the life you want. But I think on averages, you kind of have to look at the average kind of going in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the experiences that really impacted me was when I was doing my orthopedics rotation. It was 2 weeks long, and you kind of had to be in the hospital a lot just to show that you were committed. And I was enjoying it. I was having a great time. I was on call one of the weekends, and that was the weekend my parents were going to Chicago to see my grandparents. And my grandpa got admitted to the hospital that same weekend because he was in urosepsis.
Oh.
And that was like a big thing for me, especially with someone who has experience in the medical background, like not being there. It was like an eye opener. And then I was like, do I want to be in these situations where I'm not available for my family? I'm not there for them. And I think that was a big thing for me, where I was like, I should prioritize like my family and all these things a little bit more. But I think ultimately I didn't want to like compromise. Like I did want to do something I actually like, because you're doing this for the rest of your life.
Right.
So it was there in the back of my head, but I think interest was number one for me.
Yeah.
And like the work was number one.
Yeah. Because like you said, that's what you'll be doing every day.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that personal experience, and that takes a lot of insight to really notice at 24, 25 years old, like I'm missing out on something that's could be a very big deal, and family emergency is a very big deal. And definitely admire you for taking a moment to think about, am I going to be okay if this is my life for the next 30 years if I'm missing out on things? But yeah, I would imagine it's a really tough balance to make, and you'll probably be balancing it for the rest of your life. I'm sure it's probably something you never fully figure out, but I'm sure you did the best you can.
I'm trying my best. I'm
no,
still
for
trying
sure.
my best.
Absolutely. You're just getting started, and it sounds like you're doing a really great job. You mentioned that you work with patients, of course. Are there any patient stories that you'll never forget? Anything that kind of changed the way you view medicine? Anything that really shocked you about working with patients? I asked you a bunch of questions there. You can take a second to think about it, but I'm interested to know about your patient stories.
I'll talk about a few patient stories. I think interesting ones in medical school. I think one of like the coolest experiences I've ever had was when I was in my neurosurgery rotation. I was kind of on call overnight. So I saw a patient. He had a bleed on both sides of the brain. He was fine. He was doing well. He was making jokes. But I went to see him, and then eventually it kind of started getting worse. So he needed emergency surgery. And because I'd been on neurosurgery for a while, and they knew I was interested, so they'd involve me in a lot of things. So they let me, with proper training and proper supervision, at least start the burr hole that goes into the skull. And
oh my gosh, I've seen this on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, it was so cool.
I know exactly what that looks like.
It does exactly look like that.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That was one of the craziest experiences ever. Kind of like seeing the patient and then doing the burr hole, which is wild. I would have never thought I could have done this.
Yeah.
It was very safe. There were a lot of people watching over me.
Yeah.
But and then evacuating the bleed and all of that. It was one of the coolest experiences ever.
I bet.
Yeah, it was just amazing, and I think that was one of the reasons I was so like captivated by the field, because those experiences, like how many people in the world can say I've done that?
I was just gonna say, like, how many people get to see a human brain to like open and then also do work on it?
Yeah, and the surgeon I was working with was very specialized and very unique in the way he does surgery. Dr. Nasiri at Toronto Western, and that was amazing. Like just to see the brain every single day. Even to see it like kind of beating, because the brain also kind of not like beating like a heart, but because of the blood, it kind of does oscillate up and down.
Okay.
So seeing that live, being able to like touch the brain, it's like one of the coolest things I've ever done.
That's crazy. That's what, because to me, like, the brain exists, but I don't actually really have a visual of it because I've never seen one. That's crazy.
That was like one of the coolest experiences. And then another one was actually during my OB rotation. I was on call again. These things always happen on call. So you're on 26 hours, but you get to do cool things. And I was helping with a C-section, and this patient had triplets. So they had like 3 babies. And that's why we were doing the C-section. And because we were on call, we had like the primary surgeon, the resident, and then myself. And because there were 3 babies, I could actually be involved in the surgery.
They needed help.
Yeah, exactly. So then I think one of the coolest things that I saw was they handed one of the babies to me. And that was the first baby that came out because they had to work on getting the other babies out. And then they told me to kind of rub its back to simulate it because it wasn't crying. And then once I did that, I saw its eyes open. And I was like holding it like this. And that was, I think, one of the most heartwarming moments. Like, I'm not a parent and I don't understand this, but it was like to see like a life come. It was like breathtaking. And my resident was watching me and she said that was one of the, she said it was the cutest thing she'd ever seen, and that's why she does OB.
Oh, that's sweet.
But yeah, by the way, the baby can't see me because of its eyes.
Fair enough. But still.
But for me, I was like, this baby came into this world and saw me as the first person. That's extremely cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, you're the first person that. Oh, I would probably cry. That's so cool. Like something you did, you know, rubbing its back to simulate the cry and start breathing. Like something you did is what kind of made the baby come into the world a little bit and come alive. And that must have been really cool for the OB to like watch you have that moment for the first time, because they probably have that moment often. But and I imagine it would have been a pretty small baby if it was a triplet.
I was very scared. They showed me exactly how to hold it.
Right.
But like babies are slippery. And,
right. Yeah.
So I was making sure I took all precautions.
Oh, that's so special. That's really cool. Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Are there things that you feel like patients have taught you that a textbook hasn't, or a textbook just never could, or being in the class can't?
Yeah. I think it's sometimes cliche, but I think it's very important. I think like patients just want to be cared for, and patients just want to be heard. I find that especially when you're in the hospital like all day working really hard, it's very easy to kind of become numb to a lot of things. Like for example, if I'm in my internal medicine block, I might see 10 patients with cardiology problems or with some other problems. So for me, it's like it's a normal day. But for this person, it's like the worst day of their life. Yeah. And for their family, it's the worst day of their life. So I think taking like the extra 2 minutes, even the extra 2 minutes, extra 3 minutes, whatever it might be, to just sit down with them, explain to them in like layman's terms what's going on. I think that's really important. And I saw that with my grandpa because when he was in the U.S. and I was here, I was kind of trying to figure out what was going on. I had just finished my internal medicine block, so I thought I could really help. Yeah. But it was very hard to gain access to the doctors because they're very busy. Yeah. But I think seeing that and seeing what it does to the family, because that made my mom and dad, my uncle and aunt very anxious.
I bet.
So then kind of applying that to now, like I try to make sure that I can like sit with the patient for a bit, explain to them what's happening. And sometimes the patients might also feel like they can't ask you certain things. They might feel like you're busy if you're rushing. So if you sit down, they're kind of open to it. And then kind of sitting down at their level rather than like standing up. Yeah. These are like small things. I feel like that make a huge difference.
Absolutely. We talked about how you see some people on the worst days of their life. Have you had to deliver difficult news to a patient? And if so, how have you navigated how to do that? And does that take time to learn how to do it well?
Yeah, it is a difficult thing. I luckily haven't had to do it too many times. But I think what they do really well in medical school here is there's a lot of supervision, there's a lot of guidance, and there's a lot of support. So if you ever ask someone for help, it's never like really looked down upon. It's something that's like people are there to support you. So when I was on my elective this past year, I had to deliver some bad news where we were kind of telling the family that this patient's kind of continuing to get worse, and we don't really anticipate that this patient is going to get better or that we're going to have to shift them to the ICU. And I think that's like a really difficult like thing to do, and it's news that you don't ever want to deliver, and it's news you don't ever want to hear. I think something that really helped me during that time is I'd been taking care of that patient and that family for the last 5 days. Wow. So I kind of understood what they were like, how they liked information, how the patient wanted to be treated. and what their cultural values were, what their religious values were. So that really helped me because over the last 5 days, they wanted me to be very direct with them.
Okay.
They wanted to tell me what was going on rather than kind of go around the bush or sugarcoat anything. And because I had that liberty of those 5 days, I knew how to deliver the news. So I could be very direct. And I had my senior resident with me behind me as well because I wanted to make sure someone was there to support. And he did a great job of telling them as well. And then that's basically all I did. I was very direct with them. I told them what the next steps are. And a few days later, the patient was moved to the ICU. And his daughter actually came back to the floor just to thank me.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was very nice. And
I bet.
Yeah. So it leaves these experiences kind of stay with you.
Yeah.
And not that, and I don't want to give these conversations too often.
Of course.
Yeah. But I think you kind of learn along the way. I'm sure I'll make mistakes. Yeah. But you kind of just have to be open to it and adapt as things go on.
Yeah, I bet that must have made all the difference for the family, you learning how to speak to them and how they wanted to hear information, and enough for her to come up and find you and thank you. And I would imagine those are the moments that make you like really happy you're in medicine. Those are the moments that kind of make you feel like, yeah, this is what you just want to help people. And even though it was a really unfortunate circumstance, it sounded like you helped them in the best way that you could, given how terrible it sounded like it was.
Yeah, it makes all the hard work worth it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're in the hospital, you're working hard, you're tired.
Yeah.
You're awake for like the 24 hours, but then these experiences kind of energize you, and it reminds you why these things are so important, why you're doing the job. And especially like Toronto is very diverse. We have such a diverse population, so you get to work with all kinds of people. And like my background, I'm Gujarati by background, which is Indian, but I can speak a few other languages. So whenever I try to speak in like whatever language they are talking to, because it really calms them down. I've found.
I bet.
The hospital is very scary.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
And especially if you know, where we live, English is the main language, and if it's not your first language, that probably makes it even scarier. So I'd imagine if you're able, it's very impressive that you can speak more than one language, but if you're able to speak to them, I bet that would just give them such a sigh of relief of being able to like, okay, you can turn your brain off a little bit and speak in the language they're comfortable in.
Yeah, they feel very at peace.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for me, because how are they going to get better if they're just worried all the time? And also, we're very fortunate here in Toronto that we have these amazing hospitals. Like people don't realize how top class these hospitals are. Like Toronto General is ranked number 2 in the world.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like for example, any floor we're on, there's iPads for translation. So there's like a basically FaceTime someone, and then you can take the iPad up to people to talk to them. This is not available in other places in the world. So you can really do a lot for patients here. And I'm very lucky that I get to be in Toronto and be in the system where we can really take care of patients in the best way possible.
How do you think your lifestyle will change once you start residency? Do you have an idea of what it might look like?
Yeah. Internal medicine is usually 1 in 4 call. So that's every 4 days you're doing a 26-hour shift.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a lot of specialties.
It's a lot.
Though. Yeah. It's a lot of call, but all of the specialties I was considering, there would be call anyways. So I don't really view it as like a bad thing or anything like that. You get to learn a lot on call, as I was talking to you about earlier. But it's going to be a lot, I think, initially. But now you don't really have to worry about the other things. Like I don't have to worry about matching. I don't have to worry about writing like my personal statement. I do have to worry about it in like 2 years.
Okay,
because
that's 2 years away.
Because you have to like rematch when you're doing internal medicine. Yeah. But like for now, we're calm.
That's really cool. And congratulations.
Thank
That's really exciting. So you've seen a lot of, obviously, patients over the last 4 years. Is there something that you've seen that has come up pretty common? Is there something that you keep seeing like, wow, maybe people like PSA, guys, stop doing this or do this more? Something that is a reoccurring thing in patients that you see that you feel like people should be mindful of?
Yeah, I think people, or at least these days, illnesses. This is all anecdotal. This is not research based. Just as like a disclaimer. But from what I've seen a lot of patients getting very sick much earlier. Like I've seen a lot of patients with colon cancer in their 30s. That's really scary. Like colon cancer is very, very scary. I've had personal experiences, like not in the hospital, but with people I know having heart attacks at the age of like 45, 46.
Oh, wow.
And even some of the research, it shows, especially because I'm South Asian, I've kind of seen some of the research in this field. And some of the research shows that average age for like a heart attack in South Asians is around the age of 52, which is like very, very early to have a heart attack. So I think it's very important to go to your family doctor. I think a lot of people don't do that. They get lost in the system. I know you can't find a family doctor. A lot of people can't find family doctors, but it's very important to get checked. And doing these like simple things, doing these tests every 2 years, every 3 years, it really prevents a lot of harm. Like for colon cancer, you can do a FIT test in your 50s. You can get a stress test for your heart. Just seeing your family doctor will solve so many problems. And a lot of people don't do that. So I think that's something that I try to tell all my patients. Like one of my friends, what he does is when people are admitted to the hospital, he calls their family doctor to set up an appointment to make sure they actually are going to go.
Wow.
And so it's very, very unique and very smart. Something I'll put into my practice as well. Like doing that, that's like the most simple thing you can do. Just go to your doctor and you get blood work once a year or whenever they say, and it solves so many problems.
Just for preventative reasons, just to be more mindful. And that's great advice. And I'm sure, I mean, you've seen it more than anyone else probably, that not enough people do that regularly. Because I'm sure that can potentially save your life if you get something early enough. And I'm sure that can make all the difference. Yeah.
And this isn't like and it's not like just a patient problem. I've seen it in my own personal life. Like it's hard to get my parents to go to the family doctor. And I'm like, I am becoming a doctor. How are you not going to the doctor?
Right, yeah.
So it's a battle that you have to fight with your parents especially. But you have to explain to them to really understand how important this is. And they might not think that these things are happening. Like, for example, you're not going to feel your blood pressure. Like you're not going to feel having high blood pressure. You might feel symptoms of something like diabetes, but blood pressure is something that's like not diagnosed very often.
Okay.
And I always tell people that having high blood pressure is only bad if it's not controlled. So if you're taking the medicine for it and it's controlled, it's fine.
Okay.
It's not going to cause any problems. But if it's just not diagnosed, then how are you going to know? And that's what's lead to so many of these problems, like stroke, like heart attack. So getting your blood pressure checked, basic blood work, doing all the tests that just have the check marks. That's like the basic stuff you should do.
I want to do some kind of fun and educational questions, if you don't mind. What do you think, maybe you just explained this, but maybe you have a different answer. What do you think is the most underrated health habit?
Exercising. Like, if it's going on a walk, going to the gym if you can, just like whatever you can do for fun. I know a lot of people like hate going to the gym, hate being on a treadmill. But then like going to play a sport with your friends, even like playing golf, for example. Like people don't think golf is like the most physically active thing. But you can, like an 18-hole course, you can walk like 10,000 plus steps. And you're outside, you're active, you're moving your muscles. Like do whatever is fun for you. I'm not telling you to go on like do a marathon.
Sure.
Just do whatever's fun and do it all like as much as you can.
Yeah. I read I don't remember where, but I read somewhere like if exercise could be prescribed like in a pill, it would be like the most commonly prescribed medication for patients because just of all the benefits, and people don't always necessarily realize that it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, and some doctors actually do that. They like write it out on a prescription.
Oh, yeah? Oh, so you can do that.
Yeah. Like they'll write it out and be like, make sure you do this for like the next X amount of time.
You are someone who has had to stay up for 26 hours straight, so maybe you have a different answer, but coffee, healthy or not healthy?
For me, I have to have a couple of cups every day.
I bet.
Yeah, it honestly, it stops working at a point.
Okay,
But yeah, I try to be controlled in the way I'm having coffee, but I think every doctor is going to tell you that they're like drinking as much, and Diet Coke. You'll see Diet Coke in every doctor's like office. Yeah, I don't know how good it is in the long term.
But for energy?
Just for like morale even, it's a big thing.
Well, there you go. Even doctors do it.
Yeah. We're not the best patients.
Fair enough. That's what I always hear too, What's something you've learned in medicine that has changed your own life and the way you live your own life every day?
I think the stresses in life that I've seen in medicine, I think that's something that's really changed how I look at life now. I see that your life can be a lot worse. When you can be very sick, you can be in very bad positions. Your family members can be in bad positions, and everyone thinks of this when everyone knows that you could always be in a worse position. And that was actually one of my interview answers when they asked me back when I was interviewing for med school. They asked me what's one of your weaknesses, and it was that I can't really open up about my feelings, or I'm not really thinking about myself as much because I know people have it worse. Okay. But then a doctor told me then, and the doctor told me consistently over these years, different doctors, that to take care of other people, you need to take care of yourself. Right. So I think that's been a big learning lesson for me, making sure that I don't burn out, making sure that I'm up to date on everything I need to know, because if I'm doing well, then my patients will do better. Right.
That's great advice, and probably something even for people not working in medicine need to hear, because you can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. Yeah. That's probably helpful for a lot of people to hear. You cannot take care of others if you're not good yourself. So
yeah, it's a slippery slope.
You've answered this a little bit, but what kind of physician do you hope to become?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
And I think that answer evolves as time goes on. For me, I think there's a few things that I want in my practice going forward, especially in residency. Obviously, from a skill level, I want to be as proficient as possible, know as many things as possible, do the procedures as much as possible. But from the doctors I've talked to and asked the same question, they all say that all of these things are teachable. You can always look up something. Yeah. But you can't really teach someone how to be kind. You can't really teach someone how to be with patients if they're not wanting to learn these things. So I think that's something that I really want to focus on, trying to be the best doctor from a patient perspective, listening to their concerns, not rushing them, being there for them when they need it. Some patients I might not need to see for 15 minutes a day, but some patients I might need to spend an hour with. So it's not all about equality. It's more about equity and what the patient needs in that period. Yeah. We only have an X amount of hours every day, so I couldn't do that for every single patient. But whenever they need it, I'd like to be there. Yeah. And I've learned a lot from a lot of the doctors I've worked with. So emulating them in the best way possible. Yeah. is something I really look forward to.
Yeah. Well, I'm no doctor, but I think you'll make a great doctor from this conversation. I've learned a lot, and I can tell that you love it and that you're really excited and passionate about it. And like you said, you can't teach kindness and compassion, but it seems like those are qualities that you have that I think will help you make a great difference on your patient's life. So thank you again so much for coming. This is Dr. Nimit Vediya. Is that how you say it?
The doctor is weird to hear.
I bet it is. I bet it's so weird. But it's right. You're a doctor now.
Officially, yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you so much again for coming, and we'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye.